Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from. Welcome to tizoguitar. If you're new here, my name is Tyler Griffiths. I go by Tizo, and this channel is all about learning how to play guitar with a special focus on R&B music. So let's see who's in here. Pain Pocket Boy says, "Yo, what's going on? Good to see you. Good to see you. How's everybody doing this weekend?" Just getting some things settled in. I'm excited about today's topic. As you can see, the title of today is all about the pentatonic scale, fundamentals, and best practices. So what I wanted to do today is kind of just take stock of kind of the things I've learned in my guitar journey about the pentatonic scale, and give you guys some things I wish I had known earlier, as well as some ways to really get the most out of that scale. Many times we'll learn a couple boxes of that pentatonic scale, whether it's the minor pentatonic or the major pentatonic, and then we'll kind of get stuck in the boxes like we usually do, where we're just playing the same licks and we can't really do much. We know a bunch of licks in box one. The other boxes are kind of mysterious and confusing, so we stay away from those. But hopefully today we'll start from the ground up. So if you're an absolute beginner, you never played the pentatonic scale before, I'll show you what it is, how it's made, how we use it, and then give you guys some tips on how to really get the most out of all the shapes to where we're able to play all the way up and down the fretboard. All right, if that sounds good to you, I am ready to get started. Go ahead and make sure you grab your guitar. We're going to be doing some things together. The first part, we'll be going over some theory stuff, and then we'll get into the exercises. So while I'm talking theory, go ahead and grab your guitar, and let's get to it. So the first thing we want to do is just cover what is the pentatonic scale. So the pentatonic scale is a subset. It's a smaller group of the notes from the major and minor scales. Instead of the usual 7 notes, right? Major scale and minor scale have 7 notes each. Instead of those, we go down to 5 notes. That's where that name penta comes from, penta meaning 5. So 5 notes from either the major scale or the minor scale. I'm going to start, let's just go really basic with a Word document. And we'll work this out together. So major scale, right? Let's start with this first. So major and minor pentatonic. We're going to start with the major pentatonic. So I'll show you where that comes from first. So major scale, we have the typical pattern of going whole steps and half steps. If you're not familiar, a whole step equals 2 frets away from your starting point. So if you're playing fret 1, if you go to fret 3, you have moved a whole step from fret 1. And it works backwards as well. So if you go from fret 3 to fret 1, that is also a whole step. All right, just trying to relate this to guitar specifically. And then we have a half step, which is, let me mute this guitar real quick. I'm bouncing around. Half step equals 1 fret away. All right, so if you're on fret 5 of the low E string and you go to fret 6 or fret 4, that's only 1 fret away. That's a half step you've moved. And the major scale formula is whole, whole, W for whole, H for half, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, okay? So what that says is whatever note that you start on, you would then follow this pattern of going a whole step, a half step, so on and so forth. This final half step will take you right back to your starting note. So what does that look like? Let's do the C major scale, all right? So we start on our root note, which is C. We're gonna go a whole step, which will take us to D. Another whole step will take us to E. Half step F, because E and F have no note in between them, so they're just right next door to each other. 3 more whole steps, so we got F to G, G to A to B, and a final half step from B to C. B and C also have no note in between them. So that final half step will take you right back to your starting note or your root note, okay? So this is the basics of how to get the major scale. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and delete that second C. What you can do now is you can assign a number to each of those notes. So C is 1, D is 2, E, F, G, G, A, and B. So now we have notes 1 through 7, right? Those are the 7 notes in our major scale. Now, in order to get the major pentatonic, what you would do is you would take the first note, you would take the second note. So let's do this, major pentatonic formula. You take the first note, the second note, you take the third, you take the fifth, and you take the sixth note, okay? This is just the formula based off of the major scale to get the major pentatonic. 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. So you notice there's no 4, which would be, in our case, if we were to do it for C major, you would do C, D, E, G, and A. So you'd have no F note and you'd have no B note. Really what that comes from is there tends to be a certain level of either, let me go 2 so you can see my face. There tends to be a certain level of either notes sounding good together, which we would call consonant, or a note sounding a little bit more not quite as good together, which would be more tension. So like this whole thing of like, or dissonance, sorry, consonance and dissonance. So you have a thing where the notes sound good together, or they might sound a little weird next to each other. It just tends to be that the fourth note and the seventh note have more of that dissonance. It's not terrible, but the other 4 notes sound a lot better with those. So when we eliminate those 2 notes, when we take the fourth note and the seventh note out, we get all these notes that just sound so good over whatever the progression is in whatever key. So that's why people tend to use the major pentatonic or the minor pentatonic, because you end up having notes that just sound great no matter what note you land on. So that makes it very useful for soloing. It makes it very simple. So the next thing we want to look at now, let's go back. Let's make that a little bit bigger. There we go. And if you're just joining us, we're going to get into the practical stuff in just a moment. I'm just starting from the basics of how we get the scale. So that's our formula for that. I'll move that away for some space. And so we can use that, we can apply that to the C major pentatonic. So now, if we're looking at the minor pentatonic scale, which is typically the one that people learn first, or you might have learned them seen them in a YouTube video together when you're learning them. Just depends on who's teaching. The minor pentatonic is a little bit different, so it's based off of the minor scale. The minor scale formula is whole, half, whole, half, whole. Okay? So, and that's once again, that's whole steps and half steps. Whole step 2 frets away, half step 1 fret away. So now what we do is we can apply that to, let's do the key of A minor. And I chose this one specifically. So we're going to do the key of A minor. A minor scale would then be A, whole step to B, half step to C. We got 2 more whole steps, so D and then E. We got a half step to F, and we got 2 more whole steps to bring us back to our root note. So G and then A. All right. So the A minor scale starts on A, pretty much ends on G, and starts back over at A. Now the minor pentatonic scale, let's do the formula there. That formula is the 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7. Okay? So you can see the difference between the major and the minor. Remember, the minor pentatonic scale is based off of the minor scale, and the major pentatonic is based off of the major scale. So don't get that confused, okay? But in terms of the notes, we're doing 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7. So in the key of the A minor pentatonic, that scale would be A, we would skip that B, we go to C, we go to D, we would do E, and then we do G. So A, C, D, E, G. Okay, so why did I choose the A minor scale specifically? The A minor scale, you'll notice, has the exact same notes as the C major scale. All right, that would make it what's called the relative minor. Whenever you have a major scale and a minor scale that share the same notes, it's a different order now. Remember, A minor starts on A, C major starts on C, but as far as the actual notes that make it up, identical. So those are called relative major, relative minor, all right, whenever you have that relationship. And when you apply the pentatonic formula, you'll see we have that same situation. Same notes, same 5 notes, just different order. Okay? And what ends up happening with this, go back to camera 1. What ends up happening with this is that you get you have 5 shapes that are typically taught with the pentatonic scale. And with those 5 shapes, you'll find that they work for both the major pentatonic and the minor pentatonic, just because of that reason. They share the same pool of notes in a different order. So that's why the shapes will be the same, but now what will end up happening is that they'll be shifting. So the first box, we'll just start here for a second. The first box of the minor pentatonic, right, this is the one everybody learns. We're on fret 5, 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8. Those are the fret numbers, right? And with that shape, we would call that one box 1 of the, where's those focus things going there? Sorry about that. We call that one box 1 of the minor pentatonic scale. Whoop. Okay, and then if you were to move on to the next shape, right below box 1, we'd have box 2 of the minor pentatonic. But the way it works, you know how we have certain minor pentatonic notes that match certain major pentatonic notes? What would be box 2 of the minor pentatonic is the same thing as box 1 of the major pentatonic, okay? It's all about starting on that note. So A minor pentatonic, 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, so on. If we go to the second box, which would be 8, 10, 7, 8, 10, 7, 10, 7, 10, 7, 9, to 8, 10, 8, 10, would be box 1 of the C major pentatonic, right? And it's the same thing. If I play that box 1 shape, but I just start on the second note, on that C note, same notes as down there, all right? It might be a little bit confusing now, but it will make sense in just a moment. So if you have any questions, I'm just gonna grab some water. Doing a lot of talking today. And I have a lesson after this as well, so that's gonna be even more fun. But if you have any questions about what we've gone over so far, just about the formula, I'll put it back up too. The formula for the major scale, for the pentatonic scale, both major and minor. If any of that stuff is unclear, feel free to drop some questions in the chat, and I will do my best to get to it. But this is just the fundamentals. This is exactly where these notes come from. And I think this is something that I kind of overlooked when I was first learning it. It was just a matter of, oh, let me just learn these shapes, right? 5 boxes of the major and minor pentatonic, and I should be good. But what this does is it kind of allows you to see from the ground up, okay, how are we building the scale, and how can I use this to play the scale in certain spots, right? You can now move it. If you know that you want to play more of a C major pentatonic style lick, you don't have to move boxes. You can start on that first box of the minor pentatonic, just start on note number 2 instead of the first note. And then you can do, whatever you want with that. But it helps to really understand how do you get these scales so that you can make sure you're using them effectively. All right, so go ahead and drop your questions in the chat if you have them. If not, we're going to continue on to the more practical side of things. So with the pentatonic scale, right, what you want to be able to do is first, if you're brand new to this, you want to learn 1 to 2 boxes, okay? When I was first learning this, I learned all 5 right away. And what that did was it overloaded me at first, right? Because I'm like, oh, I got to memorize all these shapes, and I got to make sure I know how to go, all the way up and down the fretboard in that scale. You don't need to do that. All you need to do is learn 1 or 2 shapes. I would recommend learning box 1, which is the first one that I showed you, and then learning box 2 of the minor pentatonic. Learn those 2 that are right adjacent to each other. I'm going to show you, we'll pull it up on a graphic so you can see a little bit better. So I'm going to do the A minor. We're going to keep it in A minor. So I'm going to populate this. This is going to be kind of the opposite view of what you'll see when you look down. So this bottom string is the low E string, it's the thickest string. This top one is the high E string, or the thinnest string, right? So it's kind of inverted the way you're seeing it on this graphic. Just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. As well as this is fret 5, this is fret 7, so it's kind of flipped from what you would be seeing when you look down. So just make sure you think about, make sure you think about that when you're playing. So minor pentatonic shape, all right? This is our A minor pentatonic. What I would do is I would learn this shape first and foremost. You can move this shape up or down wherever you want to. Make sure you shift everything over. If you want to play it on fret 1, frets 1 through 4, you just move it up here, okay? So now this isn't the A minor pentatonic anymore, but it is still the minor pentatonic box 1 shape. So now it becomes whatever this first note you play is. So this shape here between frets 1 and 4 would be the F minor pentatonic, all right? Wherever you move it, that first note you play on the low E string, that's going to be the root note for your shape. So F minor, if you start on fret 2, F sharp minor, so on and so forth. Okay, I think we all understand that. Now, so I would recommend learning that shape first, and then the next shape I would learn would be the one right below it, which we would call box 2 of the minor pentatonic, or box 1 of the major pentatonic. Same exact shape. So it looks like this. All right, so from fret 7 to fret 10, this would be your box 2 minor pentatonic. Okay, and I'll get rid of this here just so it's not confusing. After I had learned those two shapes, what I would then recommend doing is what we'll do now. We're going to do a few drills to show you how to get comfortable with those shapes. Okay, so first let's do the minor one. Go ahead and grab your guitar for this part. Let's do this together. All right, camera 2. Okay, so once again, I'm just going to go through that shape slowly for you. We're going to do frets. Start on fret 5 with our index. We're going to go to fret 8 with our pinky. Then for the next 3 strings, we're going to do index finger to ring finger, fret 5 to fret 7. 5, 7. Go to the D string, 5, 7. Go to the G string, 5, 7. And for the next 2, we'll do 5, 8. So B string, fret 5, pinky on fret 8, high E string, index on fret 5, pinky on fret 8. Okay? Okay, so that's our box 1 minor pentatonic. Here's what I would do to get comfortable with this shape. So when you're either watching TV or just relaxing on the couch, hanging out with people, whatever, if you have your guitar with you, I would first start by going all the way up and down the scale. So I would do, and then I would go backwards. Okay, so just playing the literal opposite of what you play to descend the scale when you are ascending the scale again. All right, and I would just go back and forth for 10, 15 minutes. If you can alternate pick that, that's great. Alternate meaning downstroke followed by upstroke every time. Down, so down, up, with my pick, right? Down, up, down, up. If you can do that, fine. At this point, I don't even think you need a metronome. We're just trying to get comfortable with the shape, all right? Trying to get used to that shape. And there come those focus boxes again. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay. So after we do that for a little bit, next thing you want to do is add that time accountability. So now that you don't have to think so much about where you're putting your fingers and you're able to play them pretty good, now you want to add that time accountability of a metronome. So you want to start at a good speed, between, I don't know, let's say between 70 to 90 BPM, depending on how comfortable you are with the scale and with picking it. And then just work it out 4/4 time, start at 70 BPM, we'll say, and you want to do one pick per click of the metronome. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Just be a consistent time where you have to keep up with something that's keeping a regular, consistent rhythm. Okay, it's very important that as soon as you can, you're practicing playing in time, because a lot of us maybe we have pretty decent technical facilities, but we can't play in time and we can't keep the beat, and we're getting off from the drummer or from the backing track, whatever it may be. Get comfortable first with the shape, then at that time accountability, it'll help a lot. So let me see. I'm just gonna check chat to make sure if anybody had any questions. Nope. Okay, let's just keep chugging along then. So first step, get comfortable with it. Second step, add time accountability to it. Play with a metronome or a backing track or whatever you feel most comfortable with. And then what I would do is now move on to our second shape. So I'm gonna put in the second shape here. This would be our box 2. I'm gonna delete these notes just so it's not distracting. But all we've done is continue down the fretboard, and so now we're starting off on fret 8. So let me run through this scale shape with you real quick. I'm gonna play with my middle finger on the first note, so 8th fret, low E. We're gonna play 10 with our pinky. Okay, then we're gonna go 7 index on the A string, 10 with our pinky, 7 on the D string, index, 10 with our pinky, 7 index on the G string. Ring finger is going to play fret 9. Then we're going to do middle finger on the B string, 8th fret. Pinky, fret 10. Middle finger, fret 8, high E string. Pinky, fret 10. So real slowly, one more time. Okay, and we do the same thing in reverse. Okay, so for our practice plan, it would be just going up and down, ascending and descending, not worrying about keeping time just yet. Up and down, till you don't really have to think too much about where to put your fingers. And then, once again, add that metronome in or add that backing track in at a comfortable BPM. Practice doing that up and down. So now you have, at this point, 2 shapes under your belt, okay? And it's a-okay if you want to focus on one shape more than the other for right now. We're just working on to the point where we know at least 2 spots where we can play our pentatonic scale. Okay, so now some other drills that I would recommend doing, just to make sure you're not too much in the habit of, when it comes time to solo, where you're just going up and down and backing up, we want to add a little bit more variety to the way that we ascend and descend the scale. So here's the first way that I would add variety to that. And it works as a drill, just so you can continue to get familiar with that shape. So let's go back to box 1. All right, I'm gonna draw that back in. I'll leave them both on for now. So box 1, we're just gonna be focusing on frets 5 through 8, all right, for this part. So what I want you to do now, we're gonna ascend and descend this scale in 6-note groups. So what I mean is we would play the first 6 notes. So we go 5, 8, 5, 7 on the A string, 5, 7 on the D string, and that would be our first group of 6. So we'd go. Okay. After we play those first 6 notes, I want you to jump back up to the A string, and I want you to start on that 5th fret and play the next 6 notes in the scale. 5, 7, 5/7 on the D, 5/7 on the G string. And that's your second group of 6. So it would be, excuse me. Bear with me, y'all. So we're going to do first group of 6. Then we jump up a string to fret to the A string. Jump back up to the D string and do the next 6 notes. Jump back up to the G string and do the next 6. Okay? And you do the same thing going backwards. So you go from the high E string to the G string. Then you would jump back down to the B string and go from the B string to the D string. Jump back down to the G string, go from G to A. Jump back down to the D string and go to the bottom, or the top. Okay, so really slowly. Jump up. Jump up. Jump up. And then backwards. Down a string. Down one string. Down one string. All right, so that's your second drill. So after you've been used to this, then the next one is and that's just a little bit more variety than just going down and up the scale every time. So let me just check chat, see if we have any questions about what we're going over. If you are getting, I always forget to say this, if you're getting any value from this stream, please consider giving a like, subscribing, sharing, commenting, all that good stuff that the algorithm loves to see, so that more people can find my channel. It would be greatly appreciated if you could do that. And also, if anything in this lesson or this thing is a little bit over your head, or you feel kind of overwhelmed, I do offer private lessons, and I'll reiterate that at the end of the stream, but I do teach lessons on Zoom, so if you have any interest in taking private lessons, reach out to me at tizoguitar@gmail.com, okay? Tizoguitar, just like the name of the channel, @gmail.com, and I will get some info to you as soon as possible. All right, so we're going to keep chugging along. So far, we've gone over how to build the pentatonic scale, both minor and major. We've gone over some drills to kind of help with memorizing the shape and kind of giving you an idea of first memorize the shape, then add time accountability, then start mixing up how you're playing that shape in your drills. So there's only a few more things we'll touch on. Let's just get back into it. All right, so once you learn that whole thing, the same thing applies to that box 2 shape that starts on fret 10. We're going to do those 6 note groups just like we did with the minor. All right, and you'll notice I'm taking this approach where I'm basically assigning a fret to each finger as much as possible, okay? So when I'm going through that minor pentatonic shape, all the notes that end up getting played on the 5th fret, I'm using my index finger for, okay? All the notes that end up getting played on the 8th fret, I use my pinky for, okay? And what that allows you to do is to play a little bit more with feeling. You're not having to move so much around and guess where the notes are. If you can just keep your fingers in the same area, you'll always be able to play those, whether you're looking down at your fingers or not. You can kind of feel your way through the scale, which I definitely advise practicing that way because you want to make sure you don't need to look down to play your instrument. Once you get comfortable with the shape, you shouldn't be looking down at your fretting hand that much, okay? It's okay from time to time, but you shouldn't have to be constantly making sure you're on the right fret once you put in enough practice with that. So by assigning a fret to each finger, it just makes it a little bit easier to think about when you know, if I have to play a note on the 8th fret, I'm always using my pinky, and it just becomes a little bit more natural. I can play the scale with muscle memory and not so much with looking down and checking the notes. Okay, so you do the same thing. 6 note pods up and down with your major. Okay, so now here's the next step. So we want to break out. Let's go camera one. We want to break out of this idea that we have to play the same patterns up and down. Okay, it's what ends up making our soloing sound kind of stale, kind of basic, is that we're just using that pattern and we're going up and down in that pattern and trying to make something that sounds like music. Now, what you want to be able to do, first off, is you want to have some vocabulary. So this is going to vary from genre to genre. Certain licks sound better for R&B, or they sound better for funk, or for blues, or for jazz. And you want to make sure that whatever genre you're interested in learning on guitar, you're learning the vocabulary, you're learning the licks that sound appropriate for that genre. So, and the next step what you would do is you'd be like, all right, I want to learn licks in this one shape. So right now we've learned two shapes, okay? Box 1, box 2 of the minor pentatonic. You want to make sure that you're learning, let's say, at least 5, just to start off. You want to learn at least 5 licks in that specific shape that you can always recall back to memory if you need to play it, okay? After you learn those 5 licks in that box, learn 5 licks in the next shape and the next shape. Then, let's say you have a few licks that you know in your box 1 and you have a few licks you know in your box 2. Now I want you to start thinking about, how can I play the same licks in multiple boxes? So we'll just give you like a super simple example. I'm going to shift up to fret 3, okay? We're going to play the minor pentatonic. Okay, this is still the box 1 shape. All I've done is move it from fret 5 as our starting point to fret 3. Okay, so from there, let's say I want to do a lick that repeats. I want to do 3, 5 on the D string and 3, 5, 3 on the G string. Okay, 3, 5 on the D string, 3, 5, 3 on the G string. Okay, so now that's one of my licks. I can stylize it. I can add vibrato. I can change the rhythm I use to play it. But in any case, I'm still playing that lick. Now what I want to do is say, how can I transfer that lick to box 2? Okay, it'll be in a different octave, but I know that I can always move that over here. And that comes from our box 2 shape. Okay, so same lick. Next box, okay? Now I want to think, as I'm learning more and more boxes, I want to be able to move that same lick to a completely different box, which might be, that would be in our box 3 shape. That would be in box 4. I know I'm going quickly, but it's not so much to memorize a lick, it's just the concept of saying, all right, in every box that I know, I want to be able to play the same lick multiple spots. So, and then I would go to here. So what I would do is, with any of the licks that I've learned, I would think about, how do I play those licks in the other boxes that I know? Okay, that's going to give me more freedom. I don't have to be locked into one position on the neck in order to play my favorite lick. I can always just learn it in multiple spots, and that gives me more versatility when it comes to soloing. Why do you want to do that? Well, that comes to our second point. So the second thing is you want to be able to do is you want to have licks that will get you from box to box, okay? So that you're not staying stagnant in one area, where your solos can be a lot more dynamic. So here's an example of a lick that I might use to go from box 1 to box 2. So this is box 1, and this is box 2. Okay, and a lick that you could do, you could go 3, 5 on the D string. You can go 3, 5 on the G string. And then you can slide from 5 to 7 on that same string, on that G string. All right, and what that is, that gives you a kind of a stylistic way of shifting between boxes. So now I'm in box 2. All right. So once you have some licks, once you have those shapes and you have a few licks in each shape, then you want to start thinking about, how do I find kind of smooth ways to transition between those shapes if I want to play, and remember, solos are planned. Improvisation is not, but solos are planned. So if you're planning out your solo and you say, I want to do this lick in box 1, this lick in box 2, then you need something to get you there in a way that sounds musical. So that's when you would use something like that lick. Okay? Transition, like that. So learn licks in multiple spots through different boxes as you're learning. And this is a progression of months to years. It's not weeks, okay? So maybe you learn one box in 1 month, and the next month you focus on a different box. Then month 3, now it comes time to connect it, okay? Give yourself plenty of time to really internalize these concepts and really get comfortable with the shape. Don't feel like you have to be rushing off to, all right, I know all the boxes, I need to start learning how to solo all over the neck. No, the more you can break things down into like really small, digestible pieces where you just focus on one shape, learn some licks in that shape, then move on, then learn some licks in the second shape. Now let's combine it, all right? You always want to put yourself in a position where you're building upon what you've been working on, all right, and getting better and better. So start with one box, learn those licks. Now you have, let's say you have 5 licks in box 1. Then learn box 2. Try to learn those same 5 licks, if possible, in box 2, all right? So now you're just as good at box 2 as you are with box 1. It's not like you have to go back or when it comes to soloing, you're not in a position where you're really good in box 1 and you have nothing to offer in box 2. You don't want that. You want to be able to transfer those licks over, and then once you are comfortable with multiple boxes, that's when you start working on those licks to connect the two, all right? It's going to give you a lot of ammo to use, and you won't feel like you're stuck in just one part of the neck, which is really a detriment to your soloing. You don't want to be stuck. You want to be able to move fluidly between different shapes. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have for you today. I really appreciate you guys for tuning in. Quick recap, we learned how to make the scales. So if you're just joining us now, we learned how the minor and major pentatonic scales are formed based off of the major scale and the minor scale. We took a look at some exercises that we could do to get comfortable with those shapes. And then we recommend that we add time accountability to those shapes. And then, let's see, one second. And then from there, we were looking at the process of now adding vocabulary, whatever genre you have that you're interested in playing. Then you can learn licks that sound appropriate for that genre, learn how to transfer those licks between different boxes, and then connect it all together. Let's see, just checking chat right now. Chaton says, you should speak about the arpeggios and pentatonic playing. Okay, so what he's mentioning is that arpeggios are when you take the notes of a chord and you play them individually like it's a scale. So quick demo. If you have a major 7 chord, let's say we'll do this shape, we'll do an A major 7. The focus boxes are back. All right, so that's a shape. I'm doing pinky on D string, fret 7, ring finger, fret 6 of the G string, middle finger, fret 5 of the B string, index finger, fret 4 of the high E string. It's like a little stair step shape. All right, and so you can play them all together and play your chord, or you can play them individually. And what I just did is I added a few notes, but it comes from the arpeggio, where you're making a scale shape, but all those notes are just the notes of a A major 7 played as a pattern. And what you can do with that is pentatonic scale is going to sound good over all of the chord changes, but the arpeggio will sound especially good over the actual chord. So if you know your progression is a 2-5-1, we'll say, we'll make this the 1. Let's say we'll do C major's the 1. 2, D minor 7, 5, G7, C major 7. When you're playing that 2, you can play the arpeggio of this chord, which is a D minor 7. Then you can play the arpeggio for a G7 when that chord is playing. And then you can play the arpeggio for a C major 7. It might sound like it's complicated, but it really is just the notes of the chord, and you just time it so that you're playing those notes or you're landing on those notes when that particular chord is playing. So you're just playing whenever you hear that D7, oh, D7 arpeggio, or D minor 7 arpeggio. Whenever the G7's going, G7 arpeggio. And it gets more what's the word? It's a little bit different than that. It's not just playing from root to seventh every time. You can kind of alternate how you play it. Play little fragments of the arpeggio and then get back to the pentatonic scale if you want. But yeah, that's just a different option, which we didn't have time to really go over too much today, but you have that option too. So pentatonic will sound good over everything. Then start looking into those arpeggios and see, okay, well, when this chord comes along, I can play this arpeggio for that chord, because once again, solos are planned. So you have time to really lay out and say, I want to do this over this chord and this over that chord. It'll sound a lot better when you're more intentional and you're taking the time to be very specific about what you want to play when a certain chord comes on. But that's the next step. All right. So if you're new to this, just start off with learning some shapes, learning some licks, learning how to move them around. That would be my recommendation. All right. Any questions before I head out? You guys have been great. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions, drop them now. I'll give you just a moment, and then I will get out of your hair. Let you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Let's see. Just throw that back on for a second. All right, doesn't look like we have any questions. So I'm gonna bounce. Once again, thank you so much for watching. If you are looking for private lessons, reach out to tizoguitar@gmail.com, okay? Shoot me an email. I will send you some information as soon as possible. Also, I keep forgetting to plug this, but I have a Patreon, www.patreon.com. Actually, let me just drop it in the chat. That makes a lot more sense. On my Patreon, I have basically tabs for a lot of the songs that I've covered on my YouTube channel. I also have some backing tracks, some licks, different things all tabbed out for you, as well as some advice, excuse me, some advice and some practice tips for intermediate and beginner guitarists. So definitely check that out if you're interested. Patreon.com/tizoguitar. All right. As well, I also have a Instagram where I tend to post like little short clips of me playing, as well as stuff I'm working on, whether it be making my own pickups or just upgrading things on my guitars. Definitely subscribe to that if you haven't already. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter. Twitter is where I'm going to start dropping the announcements for the channel. So whether I'll say I'm going live tonight at such and such time, that's a great place to keep up with that. I just haven't been really good about plugging my Twitter, unfortunately, but same thing, at tizoguitar on Twitter. I do have a TikTok, but I don't use it, so don't go looking for content over there. But in any case, let's see. Him says thanks from France. Yep, I'm glad you're watching. Thank you so much for watching. Yeah, so that should be good. Remember, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, do the algorithm stuff. Really helps the channel. I appreciate each and every one of you. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.